Hey beer friends, I'm back. My name is Tammy. Welcome to my channel. I am a brewer and winemaker in Ontario, Canada, originally from the US, but here I am. So if you saw my last video, I talked a little bit about what I'm doing and the videos I'm going to be posting over the next little while. And basically I'm studying for my certified Cicerone exam, and I'm trying to work through the beers that I struggle with in terms of tasting or being able to identify what they are in a blind tasting. So I've got another beer that is tough for me, which is funny because I actually went to college in the Midwest, and I probably drank quite a bit of this at some point during that time. But if you know it, you might love it. It's PBR. So we all know the saying, PBR me ASAP. So here we go. PBR is from Milwaukee. It is considered an American lager. And something that's interesting is that in the American style category, when we talk about like the subsections of beer, there's an American lager and there's an American light lager, because the American lager, I guess, was not light enough. And in, I think, the 70s, I believe it was Miller decided to sort of make things even lighter. And so we ended up with Miller Lite. And pretty much anything that's got the word L-I-T-E in it is going to be a light lager. So we've got Miller Lite, Bud Light, there's Mick Ultra. I don't even know what they are because I really don't enjoy drinking them. They are pretty flavorless, which is the goal, and I just don't enjoy them. So I couldn't even tell you what all the what all the options are. But if we're talking about just straight American lager, Miller, I want to say MGD, Budweiser, PBR. Probably a Rolling Rock. I used to drink a lot of Rolling Rock. Yeah, I don't know. So we don't have a lot of options here in Canada, surprisingly, especially now. It is February 14th, 2025, so things are a little bit weird as far as things go, getting things across the border. So PBR you could pretty much find everywhere, but we don't have a ton of options to be able to compare these different beers, and so I kind of take what I can get. So I'm going to try the PBR today. And one thing that is important that you learn about in Cicerone, because it does have a lot to do with serving of beer, is that glassware is important. And pretty much no matter what beer you have, if it's an American style beer, it's going to be in what's called a shaker style glass. So people probably see this and this is very familiar to them. This is from Shiner, which is another American lager, and I got when I lived in Texas. So let's do this. So I'm not going to pour the whole thing right now. Oh, why not? I'll just pour the whole freaking thing. Pretend like we're at a bar. Okay, so for one, don't look at my glass. It's dirty, and you can tell by all the bubbles that are clinging to the side of the glass. And I will just say that if you're at a bar or a restaurant and they serve you beer like this, that is a dirty glass, and you want to send that back, because basically all these bubbles are clinging to little specks of like dirt. Otherwise, if it was clean, they would have nothing to hold on to. Okay, but non sequitur, segue aside. So if we look at this, it's pretty light. It's very clear. My head, which is the foam right here, has subsided a little bit, but it was pretty good. And I actually don't know. No. Yeah. You can see I've got a lot of bubbles going up and down. So carbonation is pretty good. So I brought this up last time in my video, but basically there's a couple different aids, I guess, I'm going to use to help. So one is this color guide from Prud'homme, and there are a lot more colors of beer that are listed here, but this is like a pretty good starting point. And then I've got this WSET, which is a training course. And they've created what's called the SAT, which is the systematic approach to tasting. And they have it for beer, wine, and spirits. And I believe sake. So I'm using the one for beer because you just kind of go through and you look at like, what's the clarity, what's the color, how does the foam look, etc. And you can just sort of like go down and choose from these options. And it sort of helps you figure out, is this beer true to style? So we're looking at clarity. Obviously, this is very clear. So that's like not even up for discussion. The color, straw to gold, amber, copper, brown, black. Obviously, it's not anything dark. So I would say this is straw because that's the lightest option that we have. And I would not at all say that this is near gold. This is just too light. One thing about the American lager and the light lager is that, again, they were formulated to be very light and really have almost like no flavor. And I'm sure a lot of people will be upset about me saying that. But basically what happened was when brewers from like say Europe, mostly Germany, came over to the US in the 1800s, they found that they didn't have the same type of malt that they did in Germany. So the malt that they had in America was better for using what we call adjunct grains. So anything that's not basically like a barley malt, so corn or rice, etc. So they would use some of that malt and then also top up the rest of their brewing recipe with corn or rice. And corn and rice basically have like no flavor at all whatsoever. You're just using them for the sugar. So that's why these beers are so light and really don't have a lot of grain or malt flavor. The foam in the head was actually pretty good. So, you know, I would say the foam is like small to medium. And yeah, I don't see anything like weird. Again, like these breweries are so huge that they've got quality control and labs and all of the latest technology. So they've filtered everything and they've checked everything. So we shouldn't be seeing any sort of sediment or anything weird in there. So now we're going to smell it. And again, doesn't really smell like a lot. So when we look at the intensity, is it light, medium, or pronounced? I mean, it doesn't smell like anything to me, so I would say it's light. And then we're also looking at what are the aromas. So am I getting anything from the malt, the grain, the hops? I don't get anything. I mean, it's kind of what you would think of when people say, oh, it smells like beer, or it looks like beer, or it tastes like beer. It's just that kind of generic yellow fizzy beverage. Really nothing like super exciting or unique about it. So carbonation, this is more something that we have to taste because we want to see how it feels like when we taste it, if like the bubbles are kind of exploding on our palate when we drink it. So let's do that. So it's funny because in my last video, I talked about how we need to use like descriptive words to talk about the taste and the aroma, etc., and not just say like fruity or floral or malty or sweet. But when I drink a beer like this, what I always say is it tastes like college. That's what it tastes like to me. I feel like I'm at the library, having a $6 pitcher of beer on a Monday night, in Dinkytown, Minneapolis. That's what it tastes like to me. Anyway, so that is all that is to say. I get a little bit of, I mean, I get carbonation, but it's not super high. I would say low to medium. Body, low. What gives beer its body is that malt. Because when you're brewing with all malt, like malted barley, the yeast does not necessarily ferment all of that sugar that is in the malt. And so you get a little bit of that residual sugar that gives it some body. But because this is really a lot of like corn and rice, you don't get that body because all of that has been fermented out. All that sugar has been fermented out. So it's really like there's not a lot happening. Alcohol is on the lower side, but I want to say it's considered medium because it is 4.9%. So it's, you know, it's a decent ABV. Bitterness and sweetness. Really not getting anything. Which is kind of what they want. They want it to be just straight, really nothing out of the ordinary, because they want people to just kind of keep drinking and drinking. And if it was too strong or too bitter or too sweet or too syrupy, you know, people wouldn't have very many. What else? The finish. So how long is it? Everything kind of like lingering there. This is not going to be shocking, but basically it's short. It's not really lasting at all, and that's because there's really nothing in here to last. I do like, after I kind of like take a few sips, and a technique that I learned in one of my many like Cicerone training sessions is to take a sip, you swallow, and then you breathe out your nose. And I feel like when I do that, that's when I get the most flavor, which is really related to maybe the malt. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go on the back side of my sheet where I've got all the different, you know, instead of just saying malty, I can look at the different types. So I would say just say like water cracker, which is basically the term we use to describe any malt that is very, very lightly kilned. So when you have malt that is being prepared for brewing, it has to be kilned. And basically, if you kiln this malt at like the lowest level, like say it comes out at like a 1 or 2 lobby bond, which is the color, we usually say that's like water cracker, and that's what we call a Pilsner malt. And so basically that's what I get from here. Just light. Everything's light. I really don't get anything else. I will say, yeah, this isn't something that I would drink a lot of or want to drink again anytime soon or very often. But basically, you know, when I was in college, I didn't actually start drinking beer until I was 21, or drinking any alcohol, because that's the legal age limit in the US. And so I would go to a bar and I would just get whatever my friends were ordering because I didn't know anything about alcohol. And being in the Midwest, it was usually like Miller or Shell or sometimes hams, PBR. What else? Grain Belt. I actually really like Grain Belt. That's a Minneapolis beer, and it does actually have a lot of that grain flavor still. But basically, I just drank whatever people were drinking, and it was either a regular lager or it was light. I didn't know the difference. They all, you know, really didn't make an impression on me. So I would drink this like out of nostalgia. That's why I still buy Rolling Rock when I see it, and it's pretty cheap. But it's not like anything super exciting that I, you know, am thinking like when I get home from like a long day at work, I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to have like a PBR or whatever. So I don't know. So that's that. So like I did with my last video, I want to see how I did with my American lager. So when we talk about perceived bitterness, it's low. Let's see, color straw to light gold, ABV lower to normal. Glass, you would serve it in a shaker glass. The body is low to medium low, which, like I said, there's really nothing there to give it any body. Carbonation is usually high carb, which kind of is what gives it that body, like that when it's highly carbonated and you drink it and it kind of like explodes in your mouth, all the bubbles kind of pop open. That's kind of what gives it some feeling, some mouthfeel. I don't know that I get that with this, but again, drinking beer in a can and drinking beer on tap is like, they're different experiences. So there's some grainy malt flavor. There's some yeast fruitiness, which, you know, I don't really get that, especially since this is a lager and we're using a lager yeast, and usually they're pretty clean and you don't get a lot of those other flavors and aromas, but maybe I'm just missing it. And then some examples, like I said, PBR, Bud, High Life, and Coors Original. I forgot Coors. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I think I did okay. I don't know if I would really do much more of this, so I'll take one more sip and then yeah, that's that. PBR American Lager. Cheers. Happy drinking.